Hey, what's up? Alex here from Metamind Music, and in this video, we're going to go ahead and continue our journey into the world of the compressor, and more specifically, we're going to look at the attack time and release time settings. These two settings basically define the character of the compressor, right? It's like the way in which it's going to affect the transient, and it's going to affect our perception of the sound once the sound starts becoming compressed. And a good way I like to think about it is the attack time is basically the reaction time that it takes the compressor to start working. So like if we think about the analogy of watching a movie and a super loud action scene comes on and you grab your remote to turn it down, it's basically the reaction time of how fast it takes you to actually turn it down, which is the attack time. And the release time would be basically how long it takes for the audio signal to go back to normal. So with those two settings, the attack time and the release time settings, combined with the ratio and the threshold, you now know all of the major components of a compressor. Those four parameters make up most of all compressors that you'll see. So if we look at the two things that we already know, which is the threshold and the ratio, I'm going to lower this threshold so that our audio signal is surpassing it, and I'm going to increase the ratio to 2:1 so that there's a little bit of compression happening, and we can see that by the orange line here. And basically what the attack time does is at a super quick setting, it will start compressing the sound immediately. So basically with a super fast attack like this, the whole hi-hat sound is being compressed immediately, like the whole sound is being reduced. But if we start increasing this time, meaning it's going to take longer for the compressor to start working, you'll start to see that it's not actually compressing the whole beginning part of a sound. So if we zoom into the waveform here and we look at a hi-hat, basically you can see that this peak where the hi-hat sound starts is a huge peak, and then it starts to tail off quite quickly. And if you had a really quick attack setting, basically you'll start compressing right away, like right at this peak will start to get compressed. But if you start lowering that attack setting, it might only start compressing at this part, and the first part of the sound won't be touched by the compressor because of your longer attack setting. And what this can do is it can actually fool our ears into thinking that the attack of the sound is a lot louder than it actually is. So it's sometimes having a high attack setting can be very useful to bring out the impact of a sound. So it can be very useful for snare drums or for a kick drum to really bring out the attack, to really make it stick out, because basically what you're doing is only compressing the tail end of the signal. And when you do that, it basically makes the beginning of the sound appear to be more impactful. And that's kind of what we're going after if you want to use a compressor to like really bring out the attack of a sound. And contrary, if you compress something with a really quick attack and a slow release time, it will do the opposite, and it will really bring out the ambience of a sound. So like if you did that on, let's say, the bottom of a snare track, like the bottom mic of a snare, it will really bring out the space of the snare sound, right? It'll really bring out the ambience of the room, because of having a fast attack will squash the immediate transient, and having a slower release will definitely keep the compressor engaged for the tail of the sound, which will definitely bring out that ambience in the sound. Another thing about the release time, which is, I would argue that the release time is one of the most crucial settings, because if I have a really long release time and I play the hi-hat and you see this orange line slowly going back to normal, well, that's how long it's taking for the compressor to let the signal go back to a nominal setting, which is like unity gain, meaning untouched, back to normal. And if you have a release setting that's too long of a setting, and you have a succession of notes, because most time in music, it's not just going to be one hi-hat and then it's over. It's usually going to be a hi-hat played in a rhythm. And if you do that, you'll notice that if I have a really long release time, that all the successive hits of the hi-hat are actually being compressed at a high ratio. Like the whole sound of the hi-hat is being kind of compressed and not actually going back to normal ever. So you're actually only hearing a super compressed sound. But if I bring this release time to a lower value, which will mean that it gets released quicker, you can see that now the compressor lets the hi-hat signal get back to normal before it gets compressed again. So in utilizing a different combination of these basic 4 parameters, you'll be able to exercise all of the main functionalities of a compressor, and you'll be able to shape the different transients and their dynamic response, and also how our ears perceive it. So you can really bring out the attack of a sound by compressing the tail end of the sound, or you could really bring out the ambience of the space of where the sound was recorded by compressing the tail end of the sound. So that wraps it up for this video, and with a core understanding of those 4 parameters, you are good to go and get started with the compressor. And you're really going to have to use your ear to understand and really hear the difference of the different attack and release settings that you can get. But I hope this was useful, and if you haven't already, I want you to download my free 7-step workflow wizardry PDF, which will help you get your songs from the first idea all the way to a finished product. And I'll also have a compression blueprint cheat sheet that you can get that will have all the main parameters and all the typical settings and best practices for compression and using a compressor in the description below. And until the next video, we'll talk to you soon.